At this very moment, there is an invisible leash tied around your neck. And what is worse, you handed the end of that leash to someone you do not even respect. Every time you feel offended by a mindless comment or lose sleep because of a critique at work, you stop being the master of your life to become the pet of a mediocre individual. You feel like you are in control, but the truth is that you are a puppet reacting to every emotional tug the world gives. This voluntary vulnerability is destroying your status and draining your vital energy, leaving your mental fortress wide open to chaos. But what if I told you there is a way to become absolutely unreachable? Today, you are going to learn the ancient technique to cut these strings once and for all, and build a mind where outside noise simply dies before it ever touches you. We are not going to talk about being nice. We are going to talk about absolute sovereignty. Prepare to discover why your silence is the most dangerous weapon you possess, and how planned indifference will return total control of your destiny to your hands. If you do not value your time, no one will value your peace. It is time to stop reacting and start governing. The currency of attention. Let us talk about your attention as if it were cold, hard cash coming directly out of your pocket every passing second. Most people treat mental energy as if it were an infinite and inexhaustible resource, but the truth is that it is the scarcest and most valuable asset you possess right now. In the book On the Shortness of Life by Lucius Annaeus Seneca, Chapter 3, Paragraph 1, the philosopher reminds us with cutting clarity that we are extremely frugal and careful with our money. But we waste our time and our mental disposition without any criteria. Seneca states that time is the only thing in which it would be correct and even laudable to be greedy, as it is the only possession we can never recover once it has been spent. Think honestly about the last time someone managed to annoy you deeply. Maybe it was a malicious comment on a social network or a colleague who tried to sabotage your confidence with cheap irony. You probably spent 30 minutes mentally crafting a perfect response that you never sent. Then you spent another hour telling this fact to your spouse or a close friend, reliving every detail of that small aggression. That is 90 minutes of your life that you threw in the trash, and that will never return. You would never stand by and watch someone enter your living room and carry off your television or take your family jewels. But you let any stranger enter your mind and steal your peace of mind with startling ease. This is what I call the Seneca cost, and it is the highest tax you pay for your lack of control. Every impulsive reaction is a direct and heavy withdrawal from your vital energy account. When you react in the moment, in the heat of the second, you are paying a very high price for a product that has no value. It is like buying trash for the price of pure gold. Therefore, you need to implement right now what strategists call a response embargo. In the ancient world, a wise and sovereign king did not react to every unfounded rumor that reached him from the distant borders of his empire. He waited for the real facts to be ascertained and let the dust settle before moving a single soldier. You must do exactly the same with your mind. Place a mandatory 24-hour tax on all your emotional reactions. If someone insults you or tries to destabilize you, you do not respond now. You simply wait. Tell yourself with absolute calm that you will deal with this matter only tomorrow. When tomorrow comes, you will realize with absolute clarity that that person is not even worth the investment of 1 minute of your brain energy. This does not mean that you are suppressing your feelings or running away from conflict, but rather that you are valuing your mental assets. You are a high-value individual with an important mission to fulfill in this world. Does a majestic lion happen to stop what he is doing to bark back at every small dog that barks in the distance on the savannah? Of course not. The lion has a hunt to complete and a lineage to protect. Your focus and your productivity are your hunt. When you understand that your attention is a real and limited currency, you will become extremely stingy about who is allowed to spend it. If you continue handing over your energy to people who do not matter, there will be nothing left to invest in what truly defines your future and your happiness. Treat your mind as private property with restricted access. Imagine your brain as a high-security vault lined with steel. Inside is kept your focus, your ability to create, and your genuine happiness. Every time you choose to enter into a sterile discussion with someone who does not have the capacity to understand you, you are voluntarily handing over the key to that vault to your enemy. You are letting them take your gold without offering resistance. We suffer much more in our minds than in physical reality because we give our mental property away for free to anyone. When you finally realize that every reaction is a high-risk financial investment, you will start looking for much better places to deposit your emotional capital. The 24-hour tax is your first and most important line of defense against the chaos of the modern world. It is the filter that separates the wise man from the purely impulsive man who lives as a slave to his own nerves. By delaying your response, you take total power back into your own hands. You communicate to the world that your peace has no sale price and that no one is rich enough to buy your imbalance. This is not passivity or cowardice, it is pure strategy of mental warfare. This type of self-control is extremely rare nowadays, and that is exactly why it is so devastatingly powerful. The people around you will try to deliberately provoke you just to see if they can rip a reaction out of you. They want to know if they still possess a part of your being under their control. They want to feel that they have the power to press a button and see you dance to their tune. When you give them absolutely nothing, you leave them disarmed and completely powerless. You remain as the sole master of your own domain. Knowing the real value of your attention is only the first necessary step toward your definitive freedom. To maintain consistency and strength over time, you must learn to look at those who try to bother you through a new lens that removes all the influence these people think they have over your heart. If you do not protect your mental currency, you will spend your life emotionally bankrupt while others prosper at the expense of your stress. Your attention is your greatest treasure, and it is time to start guarding it with the vigilance of an emperor. The Shadow Theater. The shadow theater is the perfect metaphor to understand the insignificance of the insults you receive daily. Imagine that you are sitting in an ancient theater, watching a play where the actors are amateurs, the lights fail, and the script is absolutely terrible. In the middle of a crucial scene, one of the actors trips over his own feet, completely forgets his line, and consumed by nervousness and shame, begins to scream aggressively at the audience to try to hide his own technical incapacity. Faced with this lamentable spectacle, would you feel deeply offended by his desperate screams, or would you feel only a sting of pity for that man's intellectual and emotional limitation? The great irony is that most of us choose the first option in real life. We treat every small offense, every acidic post, and every malicious comment as if they were calculated attacks from a brilliant and powerful enemy, when in reality we are dealing only with small people who follow scripts limited by their own frustrations. In the Manual of Epictetus, chapter 42, the philosopher explains with timeless wisdom that when someone treats you badly or speaks ill of you behind your back, that person does it because they piously believe that that is their duty or that that is the only possible truth within their worldview. They are not seeing your reality or who you really are. They are seeing only the distorted and blurred version that their limited mind was able to create. If that person's perception is wrong and they live immersed in ignorance, it is they who suffer the real damage because it is they who are chained to an internal lie. For what logical reason would you feel hurt or diminished by someone who is essentially blind to the truth of things? Start seeing the people around you not as deliberate aggressors and strategists of evil, but as poorly written characters in a shadow theater who have no power over the light of your consciousness. When someone in your work environment tries to diminish your effort or question your competence without foundation, do not take it personally or let it penetrate your skin. Instead, do an immediate mental labeling exercise. Tell yourself, with an internal smile of one who understands the game, that there is character A acting exactly in the predictable way that character A always acts. This transforms the insult into a simple statistical data point and removes all the emotional weight that previously crushed you. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become a technical and cold observer of complex yet repetitive human nature. It is physically impossible to be offended by the law of gravity when an object falls to the ground and breaks. You simply accept that this is how physics works. Likewise, it should be impossible for a man or a woman of strong mind to be offended by the ignorance or the lack of self-control of others. You need to understand once and for all that the other's script is not, and will never be, your script. If you react, if you scream back, or if you try to explain yourself, you have just accepted the leading role in that bad play the other created. If you ignore it and maintain your posture, you remain comfortably in your own audience, preserving your mental clarity and your untouched dignity. The secret of true mental strength does not lie in demanding that the world be perfect or that people become better to please you, but in accepting with serenity that many of them are absolutely incapable of being different from what they are at this exact moment. This radical change of perspective takes the whip out of the other's hands and returns the command of your life to you. You stop expecting respect from those who cannot respect even their own existence, but so that this shadow theater does not affect you in the long run. You need to build a safe and unshakable place where you can retreat whenever external pressure seems to increase. It is in this absolute silence that you discover that there is a fortress within you that no poorly written character, no matter how noisy, has the key to invade or the power to tear down. By seeing life as this theater, you become immune to the drama of others and focus only on the excellence of your own performance. The stage of the world is vast and full of noise, but your mind must be the silent dressing room where only truth and reason are allowed to enter. When you master the art of seeing the other as they really are, of being limited by their own shadows, the insult loses its poison and the criticism loses its weight. You become a giant walking among shadows, moving with a lightness that others will never be able to understand, but that everyone will start to respect by pure survival instinct. The inner citadel, your mind, is a strategic territory under constant and deliberate attack every minute of your day. The modern world, with its addictive social networks and increasingly competitive and toxic work environments, has created a social algorithm designed specifically to break your emotional and mental resistance. This invisible system desperately wants you to care about absolutely everything that happens around you. It wants you to feel the constant need to explain yourself to strangers, to seek validation in empty likes, and to win every small, insignificant argument on the internet or in the office hallway. But while you worry about proving you are right or being accepted by people who do not even like themselves, the walls of your mental fortress are being silently torn down brick by brick. In the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 8, paragraph 48, the philosopher-emperor writes with imperial authority that the mind free from uncontrolled passions is a citadel, and man has no more secure fortress to which he can retreat and be forever impregnable before the storms of life. Think about this for a moment with all the depth that this idea carries. You possess a garden of absolute silence and unshakable peace within you right now. The world outside may be on fire, plunged into crises and conflicts. People may be shouting absurd insults in your direction or spreading malicious rumors to try to tarnish your name. But if you simply do not open the iron gates of your citadel, none of this has the real power to touch your soul or change your pulse. The great problem of contemporary humanity is that most of us live with the gates of the mind wide open, almost begging for strangers to enter and mess up our internal furniture. You need to learn the art of strategic retreat. When external noise gets too loud and social pressure tries to crush you, close the gates immediately. Do not respond to that passive-aggressive email the exact minute it arrives in your inbox. Do not waste your breath trying to convince someone who has already made the conscious decision to hate you without reason. Apply the 10-year relevance filter now in every stressful interaction of your day. Faced with a direct offense or a situation of social conflict, ask yourself the fundamental and honest question: will the opinion of this specific person or this momentary conflict matter in exactly 10 years? If the honest answer is no, then this does not deserve your attention even for 10 seconds in the present. This filter is the elite tool that separates what is essential for your destiny from what is just statistical noise for your hearing. The social algorithm thrives on your immediate and unthinking reaction, as it wants you to feel small and insufficient so that you consume more and seek desperately for validation outside of yourself. The inner citadel is the exact opposite of this modern slavery. It represents the absolute self-sufficiency of one who knows themselves. It is the deep understanding that what happens outside of you has no power over what happens inside, unless you grant that permission in writing. Marcus Aurelius, in his Book 4, paragraph 3, reminds us with fraternal affection that man cannot find a more tranquil retreat or one more free from trouble than within his own soul, away from the opinions of others. Stop seeking refuge in the applause of others or in the accumulation of material goods that can be taken from you. The only safe and permanent refuge is your technical ability to ignore what is none of your business and what does not contribute to your virtue. By strengthening the walls of this citadel, you begin to realize that the vast majority of the battles you were involved in the past were just ghosts. They were shadows projected by unhappy people to distract you from your true purpose and your mission in life. When you close the gates to what is irrelevant and petty, you finally gain the vital energy necessary to focus with laser precision on what truly builds your future and your legacy. But this defensive protection is only the first stage of your real sovereignty. To reach the pinnacle of control over your existence, you need to transform your lack of interest into an active tool of status and power that will make the whole world bow to your unshakable tranquility. A protected mind is a mind that rules, and he who rules himself will never be ruled by anyone. Indifference as power, we have now reached the definitive turning point where you stop just protecting yourself from external aggression and begin to exercise the purest and most devastating form of power that a human being can possess in all of their existence. The vast majority of people around you piously believe that reacting with brute force, shouting louder than the opponent, or having the last word in a heated argument is a clear sign of dominance and social authority. They are completely mistaken about the nature of real power. In fact, emotional reaction is the largest and most obvious sign of submission that exists in human psychology. At the exact moment you react emotionally to someone's provocation, you are publicly admitting that that person holds direct authority over your state of mind and over your inner peace. You are shouting to the world that that individual is important enough to change your brain chemistry, accelerate your heart, and steal your sleep. In the manual of Epictetus, chapter 5, the philosopher teaches us with surgical precision that it is not things or events that disturb men, but rather the judgments and weights they themselves decide to assign to those things. When you choose absolute indifference, you are emitting a final judgment of value that is absolutely devastating to whoever tries to reach you. You are communicating, without needing to say a single word, that that person or that specific situation simply does not have enough weight to exist within your private universe. This is what I define as the absolute power move. Imagine the common scene in modern daily life. Someone tries to humiliate you in front of other people or makes a comment loaded with poison and sarcasm, waiting anxiously to see your skin flush with shame or your voice tremble with anger. If you explode in fury, they win the psychological game. If you try to explain or justify yourself, they also win, as they have gained your time. But if you look at this person with a glacial and unshakable calm, or even better, if you do not even divert your gaze or your focus from what you were previously doing, you completely nullify them as human beings in that instant. Anger requires immense metabolic energy to be sustained. Contempt still requires you to spend a conscious effort to hate someone. But planned indifference is the deadly silence of one who has already won the war before the first shot is even fired on the battlefield. It is the hallmark of a sovereign soul that does not depend on external validation and that does not fear in any way the disapproval of the mediocre mass. In the book Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 11, paragraph 18, the emperor lists the gifts of nature for dealing with the ignorance of others and highlights that true strength lies in sweetness and unperturbed calm, as these virtues are much closer to virility and real power than uncontrolled anger. One who is dominated by their momentary passions is inherently weak and manipulable. One who remains motionless like a rock before the waves of the sea is truly unshakable. Understand once and for all that your lack of interest is the sharpest and most efficient weapon in your arsenal of defense and attack. The world is accustomed to dealing with people starved for attention who beg to be noticed and accepted at any cost. When you transform into that rare person who cannot be bought by a cheap compliment, nor destroyed by unfair criticism, you become dangerous to the established system. You become a leader by nature and by presence. Because no one can control or manipulate someone who wants absolutely nothing from others, and who does not. Fear the judgment of the noisy mass. True freedom does not consist in being able to do everything you want, but in not being forced to react to what you do not want, or to what does not belong to you. It is exactly here that your strict self-control transforms into an unreachable and magnetic social status. People will begin to respect you deeply, not for what you say in speeches, but for what you are able to ignore with superior elegance and class. You do not need to prove to anyone that you are a strong person. Your strategic silence and your absence of reaction prove it for you every day and in every situation. Now that you understand the real weight of this silent weapon, we need to talk about how to apply this in practice right now, transforming this knowledge into a new sovereign lifestyle. The vanity of praise and the freedom of the nameless, now that you understand that indifference is the ultimate expression of power. We must confront the most subtle and dangerous leash of all, which is the hunger for praise. Most people spend their entire lives, especially in their most productive years between 30 and 50, climbing a ladder of social and professional validation that has no top. You seek the approval of your boss, the admiration of your neighbors, and the digital applause of people you have not seen in 20 years. But here is the hard truth that will set you free. Praise is just the other side of the same coin as an insult. If you are moved and elevated by a compliment, you are by definition equally movable and destructible by a slur. You have simply traded a heavy iron chain for a golden one, but you are still a prisoner of the opinions of others. In the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 4, paragraph 20, the emperor observes that everything which is in any way beautiful is beautiful in itself, and terminates in itself, not having praise as part of itself. He argues that an emerald is no less beautiful if it is not praised, and a gold bar is no less valuable if no one notices it. Why then do you feel smaller when someone ignores your achievements or insults your character? You are seeking a status that is not yours to own. When you base your worth on the recognition of the crowd, you are building your house on shifting sand. In the hyper-competitive landscape of modern America, this need for validation is what keeps you in a state of constant anxiety and performative stress. You are afraid that if you stop reacting, if you stop proving yourself, you will become invisible. But there is a massive difference between being invisible and being unreachable. Being unreachable means you have killed the ghost in the machine that craves the approval of the mediocre. It means you no longer care if the personage A we discussed earlier thinks you are a genius or a fool. Their opinion is a reflection of their own internal script, not a measurement of your objective reality. When you ignore the praise as much as you ignore the criticism, you achieve a level of mental sovereignty that is almost godlike. You become the only judge of your own actions. You start doing things because they are right and because they align with your virtue, not because they will look good on a resume or a social media profile. This is the ultimate status. It is the status of the person who is so secure in their own skin that the noise of the world becomes as irrelevant as the buzzing of a fly on a summer afternoon. Think about the immense amount of energy you will save once you stop trying to manage your reputation in the minds of others. That energy is your fuel for greatness. By ignoring the need for validation, you seize total control over your emotional state. You are no longer waiting for a green light from society to feel successful. You are successful because you have mastered the art of non-reaction. You have cut the final chord. You are no longer a pet, and you are no longer a performer. You are a sovereign entity, operating under your own laws. This internal freedom is the only wealth that cannot be stolen and the only promotion that truly matters. Now that you have cleared the clutter of external opinions, you are ready to take the final step and transform this philosophy into a permanent shield for your soul. Finally, you have in your hands the definitive tool for the reconstruction of your personal sovereignty and the total shielding of your peace of mind. All the deep knowledge we have discussed here would be just more passing noise in your mind if it were not transformed into practical and immediate action in your daily routine. In the book Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 2, Paragraph 1, the Emperor teaches us with imperial clarity to mentally anticipate the encounter with the worst in humanity every day upon waking up. He prepares us to meet the indiscreet, the ungrateful, the insolent, the treacherous, the envious, and the antisocial, so that none of this takes us by surprise or manages to wound our essential dignity. He reminds us with a cutting wisdom that the evil the other does not have the power to actually reach us, unless we make the tragic mistake of becoming equal to them through our reaction. Therefore, I propose to you now a practical and rigorous challenge for the next 7 days of your life. Choose a specific person or a recurring situation that always drains your energy and decide, with unshakable determination, that before them you will practice absolute silence and total indifference. This is not about trying to win the argument with logical points or desperately proving that you are right. It is about not allowing the discussion to even happen within the sacred territory of your head. Observe the attempt at provocation from others as one who observes a furious storm through a thick, bulletproof glass window. You see the chaos outside, you hear the noise of the wind and thunder, but they do not possess the physical power to wet you or unbalance you. Feel the deep pleasure and the real power of being the sole and legitimate owner of your own reactions in any circumstance. Your inner peace is your most precious and irreplaceable asset, and protecting it against external barbarian invasions is your first and most sacred duty as a man or a woman of solid character. If you seek to shield your mind against the futile distractions and the deafening noise of this century, subscribe right now to this channel and join us on this continuous journey of self-mastery and absolute mental clarity. Leave a comment right now writing what is the invisible leash you decided to definitively cut today. By naming your obstacle out loud and sharing your decision with this community, you begin the psychological process of destroying it once and for all. Always remember the fundamental and immutable lesson we learned in this conversation of ours. No one in this world can hurt you without your explicit consent, and no one can steal your peace without you handing the key to your fortress into their hands of your own free will. From this exact moment, your silence is your greatest strategic victory, and your planned indifference is your greatest and most respectable power in the face of the mediocrity of the world. Move forward with your head held high, knowing that you are no longer a slave to what others think or say, but the sole and sovereign ruler of your own soul.